Reading with your kids.
Hola, ni hao, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, mahaba, ciao, bonjour, namaste, jumbo, bienvenidos. Hey, my name is Jed Lee. Welcome to Reading with Your Kids. We are coming to you from the beautiful, wonderful, historical neighborhood of Reedville, located in the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts. We are so delighted and absolutely honored that you're joining us in our mission to help all families grow closer through reading. We do that by sharing fun, thoughtful, and thought-provoking conversations with fascinating people who just happen to be writing books for kids of all ages. You can join us in our mission by telling all of your family and friends about the show and letting them know that they can hear us on the WREB AM/FM 24/7 radio network, and they can find us on the iHeartRadio app, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Good Pods, Amazon Music, Podcast Addict, CastBox, Audible, Player FM. Wherever you find your favorite shows, you can find Reading with Your Kids. We have two wonderful guests on today's episode. First up, returning to the show, Helena Ku Rhee is here to celebrate Shoes Off, Please. It's her latest picture book. And later in the show, we will be meeting the author of the new middle grade novel. It's called Mac's Mission Diary, Operation Save the Summer. Our guest will be S.J. Engelman. Hey, my friends, we have a big announcement. We have a brand new Reading with Your Kids certified great read, The Haunting by Kristen A. Fulton. This is an engaging, heartwarming, and often hilarious chapter book that captures the imagination with its ghostly charm, lovable characters, and spirited storytelling. Written for middle grade readers, the novel artfully blends mystery, adventure, and a touch of the supernatural into a story about courage, loyalty, and fighting for what's right. The story is told from the witty and observant view of Chance Jameson, a 12-year-old orphan raised at Oak Hill Orphanage. Life at Oak Hill is idyllic under the loving guidance of Miss Elizabeth May, until her sudden death and the arrival of the sinister Whipley twins threaten to turn everything upside down. What follows is a delightfully plotted ghost caper in which Miss May returns as a ghost and, together with Chance, uncovers the greedy plans of the Whipleys who aim to exploit the orphanage and its children for their personal gain. We love this book. The Haunting is a delightful, witty, and imaginative middle-grade adventure with a good dose of heart. Kristen Fulton's storytelling shines with warmth and purpose, making this ghost story a comforting, empowering read that champions kindness, community, and courage. We highly recommend this book. You will love it. Your kids will love it. The Haunting by Kristen A. Fulton. The Daytime Began. Beautiful new picture book by Mary Ellen Roberson. Available at maryellenroberson.com.
In the dawn of the world, when colors were born, a gentle voice whispered, let there be more. From mountains to rivers and skies up so blue, the daytime began. Oh, what a beautiful view. With every beat of the heart, in the breeze of the land, nature was singing as life took a stand. Oh, the wonders, the colors, the creatures so bright, in the pages of a story that brings pure delight. With every turn of the leaves, can you feel the cheer? The daytime began, let's celebrate here.
If you are a regular listener of Reading with Your Kids, you know how much I love Clowns Without Borders. ClownsWithoutBorders.org. I would love for you to visit that website and consider becoming a joy maker. Clowns Without Borders sends clowns to disaster areas, refugee camps, anywhere around the world that people really need to smile. Clowns Without Borders, we're there. Right now, my friend Josie May and 3 other amazing artists are entertaining kids who really need a smile in Zimbabwe. We would love for you to help them bring those smiles, make that happiness a reality by going to clownswithoutborders.org and consider becoming a joy maker. Your monthly gift can bring a smile to a kid who really needs it. ClownsWithoutBorders.org. Joining us right now from beautiful California, our guest is returning to Reading with Your Kids to celebrate her new picture book. It's called Shoes Off, Please. Please welcome to the show, Helena Ku Rhee. Helena, how are you?
I'm doing well, Jed. It's so great to speak with you again.
Yeah, I think this is the fourth time you've been on the show. We've been celebrating great books.
Wow. What an honor to be called for the fourth time. So thank you for that.
Well, we always have fun speaking to you. I know we had, I think the first time you were on, we were talking about the Paper Kingdom.
Yep, that sounds right. Mm-hmm.
And I love how you share stories of your family and also your culture. In Shoes Off, Please, we're going to go a little deeper into that, correct?
Exactly. So as Jed mentioned, pretty much all of my books are somehow based on my own history and my culture. And so Shoes Off, Please falls in that category. So it's a story about a girl named Minna who lives in a large apartment building where she has a diverse group of friends who don't really remember to remove their shoes before entering Minna's home. Minna has a family tradition of removing her shoes before entering her home. And she and her friends often forget. I mean, she doesn't forget, but she forgets to remind her friends to remove their shoes. So she basically asked her mom, can we change this no shoes rule? Because I'm pretty tired of it and I want to just run into the house to grab a drink of water like my friends do at their own home. So can we please just wear our shoes in the house? And so the story goes into why the tradition exists and how Minna comes to remind her friends in a fun, kind of humorous way how to remember to remove their shoes. And this is based on my childhood. When I was a kid, I absolutely hated my family's rule of removing our shoes. So I want to base a story on that.
I could absolutely see how that would present some challenges for a young person who is in a diverse neighborhood. I had a very close friend who was Chinese when I was in second grade, and I remember visiting his house. I don't remember being asked to remove my shoes, but I do remember loving being there because everything was so different.
Absolutely. And I remember as a kid, my friends loved coming to my apartment because they could taste treats that they'd never tried before, such as rice cakes or even dried and roasted seaweed, which some of my friends fell in love with. And yes, we had the rule, in a lot of families, not just mine, our background is Korean, but, Chinese families, I've heard a lot of Arab families remove their shoes. A lot of European families remove their shoes too. But my parents were very, very, they were sticklers about the rule. They would not let anyone come in with their shoes on. Even, I remember them asking even the landlord or if a plumber had to come by, they would ask the person to remove his or her shoes. So it was a rule that they really, really thought was important. And at the time, it would really annoy me when I just had to stop by for a second to grab a book or grab a drink of water or put on a sweater. It really annoyed me to untie my shoelaces and then grab whatever I needed and then tie them back on just to do it all over again. And so it was a constant argument with my parents until one day my mom sat me down and said, we try to treat our home as a very sacred and special place. And every time you run in with your sneakers on, I have to chase after all the dirt patches you leave behind and wipe it up. And I thought, okay. And it was true that my parents would often sit on the floor. It was sometimes a tradition when we had big families over, we would spread out our low table and we would actually sit on the floor and have a meal. On this low table. And so the floor was not just to step on, it was actually to, sit on, sometimes lie on. My mom worked as a seamstress for a while, and so she would spread out the clothing that she was sewing on the floor. And so I could see why it was so important to keep it clean. And so, Yeah, so Minna, my character, learns about that too in a similar fashion. And so she teaches her friends how to remember the rule.
Yeah. I like that, that idea of treating our home as a sacred space.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's lots of ways that we can do that, even if you're not taking off your shoes every time you come in and out of your house.
Sure.
As you were talking about running in quickly, I was reminded of something that happened probably a month or two ago where I forgot something. I had to go back in. I went out again, and I had left my phone in when I went to get the thing that I forgot. So it was like 3 or 4 times, and I can imagine my head would be exploding if I had to turn my shoes off and on every time.
Yeah, so you totally get it. And that's how I felt as a kid. And I know that with a lot of people, there's a big debate. Well, isn't it better just to wear your shoes in the house and then just vacuum every once in a while? Some people say, well, isn't it better just to not wear your shoes in the house so that you don't track dirt in the first place? So there's a big debate going on, and I can see the benefits of both sides. I will say that there is a convenience factor to just wearing your shoes in the house and then cleaning up every once in a while, vacuuming. But if somebody's lifestyle involves eating on the floor or a lot of, work done on the floor or that sort of thing, I can see why it's important to keep it as dust-free as possible. So it's, it's a different mindset. Now, personally, as a grown-up, we wear slippers, home slippers inside the house. But we also live with a dog. And so my dog does not wear shoes when he steps out of the house. He just, has his paws and he steps in and out. And so we wipe his paws down whenever he goes for a long walk before he steps inside the house. However, it's hard to monitor because he often wants to go out. Sometimes we forget. And so the rule is a little bit loose at our home. But whenever I go visit my parents, it's a very, very stiff rule that I must take off my shoes. And my dog must have his paws wiped with a wet paper towel every time.
I love it. I'm imagining that this is a great book if we're cuddled up with our kids and reading the book maybe for the 10th or 11th time. It's just a great way to have a conversation, one, about different cultures, and two, talking to our kids about showing respect for other cultures, even if it's something that we don't agree with, ourselves, and we have a different role in our home and different customs. It's still, you're going into somebody's space. You should respect their wishes and their culture.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like the same thing as if you step into a teacher's classroom and she has a rule, no chewing gum allowed. Well, you're not going to sit there and chomp gum and make her feel bad. So it's the same thing as that. When you enter somebody's space where they want to take care of things a certain way, you do kind of have to be mindful of the rules that they set within reason. You know what I mean? I mean, for instance, my mother-in-law doesn't like dogs very much, and so my dog is not allowed to go to her home, which I think is a little sad, quite frankly. And while I don't personally agree with that rule, we respect her rule within reason. For instance, when she's out for a while, sometimes we let our dog inside her home. Don't tell her. Yeah, don't tell her. But so we try to abide by her rule, even though we think it's a little bit ridiculous.
Helena, I don't know what kind of teachers you had. If my teacher had a rule, no chewing gum, and I came in chomping gum, she would not be sad. I'd be sad. I'd be sad at school and when I got home after she told my parents. But
good point. Yeah.
Tell me, what is it? Because obviously you love writing and writing for kids. What is it that you love? Why do you love writing for kids so much?
That's a great question, and it taps into why I write at all. I think I've loved books ever since I could read them. And so I've always thought that it's a true honor to write for kids because your favorite books as a kid will stay with you for the rest of your life. You'll remember them for the rest of your life. A lot of times if you ask a grown-up, well, what's your favorite book? Sometimes they won't be able to think of titles except for titles that they read when they were kids. That's how much children's literature matters to people. They remember it well into adulthood. And so it's a real honor for me to work in this space. And I just love the fact that somebody with a vivid imagination, somebody with a lot of curiosity about the world because they're new to the world, will pick up one of my books and be introduced to my characters. I think it's such a privilege and such a fun thing to think about. And so when readers send me photos of their kids or their students holding onto one of my books with a smile on their faces, it's such an amazing feeling for me as an author because I think, wow, this is the dream that I had when I was a kid, to write books for other kids, to introduce them to new worlds. And I'm doing this. I'm living this. It's incredible.
Yeah, yeah. And the decision to share so much of your own life. I know there are a lot of folks who love to write and get out there, be a performer, but a lot of them are like going, well, this is mine and I want to keep this here. I'll write about other people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I have books, or I should say manuscripts, unpublished manuscripts about all different sorts of things, about animals, about insects, about trees, whatnot. But I've been told by the bookmaking companies, by the publishers, that my strongest stories are the ones about my own childhood, which is why these stories have become books. I hope that someday some of my stories about other things, other people, about other animals and things like that will get published. But for now, I have been told that the strength is in my personal stories and the stories about my own history. So that's why these are the books that are on the shelves from me. But I hope that someday I'll have a wider range of stories to share.
I'm sure you will. I think the one book of yours that we haven't spoke about, at least I don't remember, is The Turtle Ship.
Oh, yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
Of course. The Turtle Ship is loosely based on Korean history. A long time ago in the 1500s, there was a ship that was designed in the shape of a turtle. And so nobody really knows the true history of where this ship came from. And so I thought, well, what if a young boy has a pet turtle and that pet turtle inspires him to design a model for a ship? There's a big contest by the Royal Navy, by the king, to get the best battleship created. And so this boy pitches his idea and everyone laughs at him. What is this kid talking about? He should just go home and play with his toys. A pet turtle? What? But he ends up winning the competition because the king notices that the turtle is small and mighty, and it has a shell that prevents it from sinking to the bottom of the sea. And that's exactly what the turtle ship was. It was the first ironclad ship in the world. It was shaped like a turtle, and it was deemed to be unsinkable.
Wow. Very, very cool. I like that a lot. Are you tempted to try your hand at middle grade or YA or?
I am, absolutely. I read all kinds of books, chapter books, middle grade, YA, adult novels. And so, yes, I hope that someday I'll have stories in each of those categories. I'm sure, Jed, you know this, but publishing is hard work, and so is writing. Writing is hard work, and I know there are writers out in the world who write very quickly. I am not one of those writers. I normally take a long while to think about a story, to put the story on the page, to revise it. And so, I hope that, in a couple years I'll have a novel published, but we'll see. Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed, yes. And not only does it take a long time to write a book, but when we're talking about picture books, it takes a long time from the day they buy the manuscript until it hits the shelves.
Exactly. And another reason why picture books take so long is because the artist, in the case of Shoes Off Please, Myo Yim, she lives in Australia, the artist has to draw all the illustrations, and that is a very long process because most artists have a lot of different projects going on at once. And if you look at the art for Shoes Off, Please, you will definitely see the love and care that went into creating each of the images. They are absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah. The cover art for Shoes Off, Please features what looks like a mom and daughter sitting on the stoop and taking off their shoes. And there's
Right.
so much love. It reminds me, there's a picture of me and my daughter down in a pigeon park in San Juan. And there's one of these parks where there's a bazillion pigeons. And most people look and they go, oh, that's gross. But she wanted to wade in and go in and sit amongst the pigeons. And I was the only one willing to do it with her. And we got there, and somebody, I think it was my beautiful wife, she snapped a picture when my daughter had put her head on my shoulder, much the way the characters on your cover art do.
Wow, that sounds like an amazing moment and an amazing photo. I love that the cover of Shoes Off, Please reminds you of that wonderful family moment.
And that's, I think, there were lots of kids' books, as I recall now, back when my kids were kids and we're curled up on the couch reading together some 25 years ago or so. There were lots of books that did, remind me of, oh, yeah, I remember when me and my mom did this, and me and my dad did this, or my grandmother. And do you take the time to think about that the words that you're putting together in combination with these illustrations are bringing back fond memories?
I do. I think about it all the time. And whenever I'm writing one of my kids' stories, it's almost like time traveling back to when I was a kid, remembering the experiences around Los Angeles that I had with my mom and dad and my little brother. And so, yes, that's another reason why I love writing children's stories. I get to time travel and become a kid all over again. I get to feel exactly how I felt when I saw Santa Monica Pier for the first time, for example, or when I rode my bike through a certain park. Those are the sorts of memories that I love re-experiencing as I'm writing these stories.
Question. One of the things, we're talking about the fact that your books are all very personal and they're sharing your stories. One of the things that I was surprised to learn is that typically when we're talking about traditionally published picture book, there's little to no communication between the author and the illustrator during that creation time. Was it difficult for you to hand in your manuscript, something that was about you, and say, okay, let the artist tell the story with me?
Well, I do know that a lot of authors might struggle with that because they think this is my story, these are my characters, and I have a certain vision of how they should look. And so this is part of the reason why publishing companies want authors and illustrators to do their own part without speaking with each other, because they don't want the author to constantly say, wait, I thought the character should have red hair, not blonde hair. Or, if they constantly gave their opinion, I think it would take the artist much longer, and probably the artist might get pretty frustrated with the author constantly giving his or her opinion. So I told myself early on, I know that with picture books, the other creator is the artist. And so I want the artist to have absolute freedom to tell the visual story as they wish. And so I made a promise to myself not to give my opinion whenever I wanted, because I knew that the picture book was 50% a product of the artist. And so I've been very fortunate to have been paired with artists who are just really at the top of their field, and they absolutely know what they're doing, and they always are courteous to reach out to me and ask. All of them have asked, were you happy with the sketches I turned in? I hope that, I did your story justice. I mean, I just love and appreciate them asking me this and asking me if I have any feedback. So they've all been so respectful, and they've all been so incredibly talented. But yes, I do know that it can be a sensitive point for a lot of authors who turn in their stories with characters who seem to belong to them.
Mm-hmm. Now, I know a lot of authors don't like to talk about works in progress, but I'm curious, is there any memory from your childhood, any wild story that you're hoping to someday share in a picture book?
Yes, I've been hard at work on a book about my cousin Louise because she was probably the person who kind of set me on the path to becoming a writer at a very young age because she introduced me to her favorite books. She was 3 years older than me. She introduced me to shows that I fell in love with, like the old show Mork and Mindy, who used to have this giant egg. She had a giant egg that existed in her bedroom, I remember, from the Mork and Mindy show. I mean, she was such a kooky gal, and I loved the fact that she was a tomboy. She would roller skate while singing down the street. I mean, she would just do whatever the heck she wanted, and I love that about her. So one of these days, I intend to write a story about her. I just haven't quite figured out how that story should start. So it's been taking me a little while. So hopefully someday a story about my cousin Louise will be out there.
Awesome. I think the image of your cousin roller skating down the street singing a song is a great place to start.
Maybe, yeah. Yeah.
We should tell everybody where they can go to find out more about Shoes Off, Please, and all of your great books.
Yes. Well, thank you. My website is helenakrhee.com. You can find out more about my books and me on my website. Also, the books are available wherever books are sold. You can go to your local bookstore or online as well. So, I hope that readers will pick up a copy of Shoes Off, Please at the library or at the bookstore, and always feel free to reach out to me. My contact information is on my website if you have any questions.
Yeah, and I understand that there's an official book launch happening in L.A.?
Yes, thanks for mentioning that. So the book releases on June 17th, and then on Saturday, June 21st, there's an official book launch party at 10:30 in the morning at my local bookstore called Children's Book World in Los Angeles. More info is on my website.
We've had a great time speaking to the author of Shoes Off, Please. It's the latest picture book from our guest, Helena Ku Rhee. Helena, thanks so much for being back with us.
Thanks so much, Jed. It's a true pleasure.
Sick Days just got spectacular. In Charlotte and Penelope and the neighborhood stage, two sisters are stuck inside until their animal friends put on the show of the year. Meet a dolphin band leader, a tap-dancing rabbit, and the loudest geese you've ever heard. It's a rhyming, rollicking, read-along adventure your kids will absolutely love. You can find Charlotte and Penelope and the Neighborhood Stage by Teresa Argenbright wherever books are sold. Hey, my friends, I want you to meet Corky the Quirky Cow, the most musical cow you'll ever meet. Corky has a magical gift. She can mimic every animal on the farm. Pigs, ducks, chickens, you name it. Together with her friends, Corky creates a barnyard symphony so enchanting that Farmer Ken starts hosting concerts. Written by Lavelle Carlson, Corky the Quirky Cow is more than just a funny farm tale. It's a powerful tool for speech therapists, teachers, and parents to help build early language, articulation, and phonological skills. Through her fun-filled storybook adventures, Corky the Quirky Clown helps young readers boost their speech and language skills with laughter and learning. And guess what? She's offering a free downloadable book, Eek! I Hear a Squeak. It's perfect for parents, teachers, and speech therapists. You can get yours today at slpstorytellers.com. My friends, if you have ever thought about owning a business that's fun, rewarding, and makes a valuable contribution to kids' education, well, Brooklyn Robot Foundry is calling your name. I recently met Jenny Young. She's the founder of Brooklyn Robot Foundry. And let me tell you, she is incredible. Her passion for getting kids excited about STEAM, that's STEM plus art, it's contagious. I'm telling you. This isn't your average kids program. Brooklyn Robot Foundry is all about hands-on, screen-free STEAM fun. These kids get to build a different robot each class and take it home with them afterwards. Kids love it. Parents are raving about it. And now you can own a franchise and bring this incredible experience to families in your community. Now, this isn't your typical franchise. Brooklyn Robot Foundry is a mobile, flexible business with a deep curriculum that's making a real impact in schools and communities around the country. Franchise owners get a proven curriculum, full training, and support from a passionate team. So what are you waiting for? Please visit bit.ly/RobotJed. That's bit.ly/RobotJed. And let them know you heard about it on Reading with Your Kids. Join us right now from the great state of Indiana. Our guest is here today to celebrate her new middle grade novel. It's called Mac's Mission Diary, Operation Save the Summer. Please welcome to the show, S.J. Engelman. Hey, Stephanie, how are you?
I'm great, Jed. Thanks so much for having me on tonight.
You are very welcome. Stephanie is returning to Reading with Your Kids. She is a member of Catholic Teen Books, and she participated in one of our progressive stories. Those are so much fun for me to start off with a prompt and then hear what you authors put together.
It's a really fun experience. It's so fun to see what the authors before me have put together. And then, I did my little segment, and then where it leaps from there. It's a lot of fun as an author as well.
Yeah. And those stories are, they always have a really delightful little twist that I just never see coming.
Neither do I. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. Lots of unexpected things happen.
So let's talk about Mac's Mission Diary, Operation Save the Summer. What's this book all about?
Well, this is the story of young Mac. He's a boy who loves his video games. And at the beginning of the summer, his mom takes them away until he finishes all of his summer reading. And she buys him a journal, and she wants him to do some summer writing as well. And Mac, like most kids, feels that this is just going to absolutely ruin his summer. And so he sets off on a mission to get those video games back under his mother's nose. He's not going to do it, by doing the reading and the writing that she wants him to do. He's going to sneak around and find other ways to accomplish his goal. Mm-hmm. And ends up discovering that life is a lot more fun when you're on the other side of a screen, when you're not, sitting behind a television, watching TV or playing video games, forms some new friendships and enjoys some new adventures.
And that is so true, and it is a message that, boy, kids and adults need that message more than ever.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Our kids are just glued to those doggone devices. And I've got kids ranging now from 10 to 21. And so, I started off as a mom when these smartphones were brand new, when the video games were really just getting a whole lot smarter and a whole lot more engrossing. And I've made every mistake in the book. I've had my babies playing with my iPhone to keep them, occupied, and gave my older kids, phones way too early. And having learned from those experiences, Mac's mother is very much modeled after me. And, I'm the mom that made the mistake of letting them have the video games and letting them just get used to having pretty much free reign on those video games. And so I wrote Mac's Mission Diary from a personal experience of taking my own kids' video games away, but also wanting to normalize this idea that this is okay. It's okay for us parents to expect our kids to be off the video games, and for the kids in particular that read the book to see, gosh, I'm not the only kid that doesn't get to play video games all day. So often that's the mantra we hear as parents is, oh, but mom, everybody else is playing video games, or everybody else has a smartphone. And, we need tools to battle that. So I hope that Mac's Mission Diary will be a tool in the parents' toolbox to help just fight this fight that we're fighting today.
And it is a fight. And I think that message is also something that's really important for the parent who's hopefully co-reading Mac's Mission Diary with their kids to hear. I recently celebrated my 50th high school reunion, and as I was sitting down, I went to a Jesuit high school here in Boston, and most of our graduates are very successful businessmen or lawyers or doctors, physicians, whatever. And my friend that I went with sat at the table, and he said, "Isn't it amazing? There's only one of the 8 men here at the table. There's only one that's on their phone." And for that to be a revelation, it tells you that even old timers like us are spending way too much time on the screen.
Yeah, yes, we are. And I find myself all the time picking up my phone because it's dinged at me, and I'm allowing someone else to control my attention, and I don't even know who it is or what they want.
Right.
And I'm giving my attention to them. And, I think it's important for us as adults and parents and grandparents to begin to really consciously start to try to set a better example.
Yeah. I remember when my son, he's 10 years older than your oldest, when we went in and he broke his phone or whatever, we went in to replace it, and we gave our kids the dumb phones, I guess you call them, the new ones, smartphones. They had dumb phones. It was mainly for safety. Our kids went to school outside of our neighborhood, and my son was in high school that he had to take public transportation to, and so it was like, well, this is a way we can get in touch with you and whatnot. And the phone was either lost or damaged, and when we went to replace it, the salesman says, "Oh, this is really great. He can do this and this and this." And I goes, I don't want that. I just
right.
give me the dumb phone, and they didn't have any. And
right.
it was infuriating.
You really have to search it out these days and know what you're looking for. And, I switched us over to a new cell phone carrier recently, and I've got a 14-year-old she's on a special, with a special company that only offers locked down phones that don't have any of the extra, no internet access, no social media. And this representative somehow learned that I had another child. I'm sure I said something, and he just kept pushing. "Oh, but she can have a free phone. She can have a free phone. And it's only $25 a month." And I must have spent 10 minutes, 15 minutes convincing this guy that no, I don't want her to have a smartphone. I've tried locking those things down and keeping my kids off of the social media. It hasn't worked. And I'd rather just have this perfectly safe, locked down phone that the company has managed all that. Although my kids were talking about how to jailbreak it the other day. But let's make it as hard. Let them learn something in the jailbreak.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Now you are, as I mentioned, you're a member of Catholic Teen Books. Is there a faith-based message in Mac's Mission Diary?
There's a very quiet faith message. The family is Catholic, and they really just kind of quietly live their faith. So there's a mention, I think, of prayer before meals. There's a mention of going to church on Sunday. Mom, when she's losing her patience with Mac, on the good days, she has a breathe, pray, like a breathe, pray response that, he knows that she's going to respond reasonably and peacefully if she does this breathe and pray exercise. And then if she forgets to pray, then he knows that she's probably going to blow her lid. And he certainly does a few things in the book, and some fun incidents, many of which are taken from my own family experience, where mom, loses her cool a little bit, not too much, and, has to go back and apologize to Mac. And Mac makes a lot of mistakes as well that he has to apologize to mom for. But just kind of that quietly living out their faith. So, I wanted it to be a secular book. I wanted it to be open to a wide audience while still, just offering that little bit of, this is how we live. We live our faith in a small and, in a quiet way in the book.
Well, I think, to be honest with you, I think that's the most powerful way to, and I don't want anybody listening to this thinking that, oh, Stephanie's trying to sneak in some message. It's just, when we see people, I remember the first time, I think we're down south with me and my daughter, and we always said grace at home before a meal, but we were out on the road and we looked around and there were folks saying a blessing in a restaurant. And it was just very quiet, just head down real quick. Thank you for this food. And my daughter and I looked at each other and we said, oh, that's, you know what? That's pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great example. Probably, so Jesus is actually mentioned in the book, but it's in a very, comical way. One of his first effort to get his video games back is that he's convinced mom cares so much about what he eats that if he just goes on a hunger strike, she will eventually cave because she'll be worried about him not eating for a few days. And then his brother brings up, Jesus starved himself. Jesus didn't eat anything for 40 days. And, they start doing a little bit of research. Well, okay, he's Jesus. How long has a real human actually gone without food? And so it ends up turning into this whole comical thing. But in again, just kind of in a cultural way that even if a family is Jewish or atheist or Hindu, Gandhi's in there too, that, it's an opportunity for conversation. This is what this family believes. What do we believe? Who in our faith tradition has gone for extended periods of time and made sacrifices for extended periods of time? And how do we make sacrifices in our own lives? It's, without being in your face at all, it invites that conversation.
Yeah. And I think that's really important. As I mentioned, I attended a Jesuit high school, and one of the neat things that kind of really surprised me when I started at that school is we were encouraged to have conversations not only about our own faith, but the other faiths around us. We were assigned to read the Quran, and it wasn't to say, oh, look how misguided that book is. It was like, let's talk about this. Let's talk about the ideas that we find in Buddhism or whatnot. And I remember at my kids' Catholic school, a woman came up to me and she said, you must be so proud. Your children are so involved in church and the Eucharistic ministers. And I just love seeing that. Your kids are wonderful. And I'm really worried my daughter's going off to college. And, in college, kids start to question their faith. And I said, that's a wonderful thing. It's a wonderful, wonderful thing. Because if your faith doesn't stand up to the questions, maybe you shouldn't have that faith.
Absolutely. And I think that's an important part of our parenting is that our kids have to be able to establish their beliefs on their own. Mm-hmm. They can't just grow up, believing what mom and dad believe and then rest on those laurels for the rest of their lives. It's not going to work. That's not a firm foundation. They have to decide for themselves why they believe this. And we need to invite them and let them know that it's okay to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, what is it about writing for middle grade readers that you love so much?
I think there is, I love the opportunity to just be creative and put thoughts on the page. With Mac's Mission Diary in particular, I really enjoyed being able to share some of my family's stories. I've got 5 kids. So over the years, which Mac's family has 5 children as well. And so many people, they hear, some of the crazy things that happen to us. And, oh, Stephanie, you need to put this in a book. You need to put this in a book. You need to put this in a book. And I always thought, well, maybe one of these days I will write a memoir. And then Mac's Mission Diary happened. And gosh, why would I write a memoir when I can just make fun of the fact that we've had lice, 4 times in our household and just illustrate that. And also provide all these other families when you do have lice or when you're afraid of, that's one of the worst things that can happen as a parent, as a kid. And now it's just one of those things that, well, Mac's family went through it. They survived. But just the opportunity to share those stories. This in particular, my kids were really excited to see it and to see their own stories in there. And then to see their friends reading it. I've got a 10-year-old, so I've been able to hear from so many of his friends about how they've enjoyed the story and what their favorite part is. And, oh gosh, I recognized Evan in this part. And, how they saw our family, but then how they saw their own family in it as well. That's been really rewarding.
That was one of the things I was going to ask you is how do your kids feel about you sharing their foibles with the world?
They censored a few things. So there were a few things that were in there that I had to take out or soften up a bit.
Uh-huh.
But in general, it's pretty fun to have a book written about you.
Uh-huh.
And the plan is that this is going to become a series. I'm working on the second book right now, and we are working as a family to brainstorm because my memory is terrible. So, okay, guys, what do you think the storyline should be? What crazy thing is Matt going to try to do this time? And what stories have we experienced as a family? Because, real life is better than fiction. So let's take what's really happened, or maybe what we've heard happen to a friend, and I'll integrate that into this story. And, that's going to be better than anything that I could just make up and write so often.
Now, are you worried at all that your 10-year-old or any of your other kids might take this as a challenge to go out and to kind of do some reality TV and create some mishaps that can enter into the book?
No, I hadn't even thought of that, Jed, but now you've planted the seed. I will say one thing that was really fun. My son, one of the things that Mac wants to do is earn enough money to just buy himself another video game, and again, underneath his mom's nose without her knowing about it. And, he and his neighborhood buddies end up they start with a lemonade stand, and then they add books and they add cookies, and, they just keep growing this thing until they actually make a decent amount of money. And, so my son is determined that he's got to earn some money. And so he got two of his neighborhood buddies together this weekend, and they had a little garage sale, and between the three of them, they made $60. So it was pretty fun. He took the initiative. This was all his idea. He started talking with his friends about it. They, figured out who was bringing the tables and who was bringing the lemonade. And, they want to do it now throughout the rest of the summer. And we're going to start working some business plans into it and, really make this a true learning experience. And it was all inspired by him reading Mac's Mission Diary.
Excellent. Well, maybe next mission is starting a business, and we'll see him on Shark Tank.
Ooh, there you go.
Yeah, there's some possibility there. Okay.
I need to spend more time with you, Jed.
Just give me a little credit. Thanks to Jed Lee. And
I sure will.
You mentioned that you had to censor some of the stories. Can you give us a kind of clue without revealing too much?
Well, yes, because he'll probably never hear. So Mac is actually modeled after my son, who is now 17. But it was, I originally wrote this book 5 years ago. So he was 12 at the time, and he was kind of summarizing our family, and he was talking about himself. And the one thing that makes him unique, he said he's very middle. He's the middle child. He's middle in height. He's, middle at most sports, things like that. The one thing that sets him apart is that he was a preemie. And so he talked about kind of his early life in the hospital and having to be fed through a tube and stuff like that. And that my son was like, yeah, no, Mom, I don't want people reading about that. I don't want that to be, like common knowledge that people are talking about at school. So it's mentioned in the book, but just not quite to the degree that I had originally foolishly written in, thinking that it was cute.
I can relate to him. I certainly don't remember being a preemie. I think it was before that was born. I was very sick when I was very young and spent my first 3 months in the hospital. And I didn't know about that until the doctor let it slip one day. And as he was there, I think I was 16. I was playing sports, and he turned to my mom and he said, "Can you believe this big, strong guy? He was once that little kid with the tube in his head." And I'm like, wait a minute, what are you guys talking about?
Wow. That had to come as a shock.
It came as a very big shock. But
yeah,
anyway,
we've got the pictures that my son has seen, so he's very well aware of his past. But he wanted it to be limited in the book, and I understand that.
I appreciate it. I appreciate that. And the little guys, they don't want to be reading about that stuff anyways.
Right. But there's a cute little illustration of this baby having steaks and, I forget what all, like a steak and a hamburger and things fed, down a tube. And so I was like, Isaac, as long as I can find enough to just I'm sorry, I just said his name. I shouldn't have done that. As long as I can have enough of the story to keep this illustration, I really like this illustration. So we came to a happy medium.
Excellent. Well, I love that. I think families will love that. As I said, I really, obviously the middle grade kids are going to love this book, but I really encourage families to continue reading with your kids as they become independent readers. If you're not reading curled up on the couch together, have co-read, have those conversations on the way to soccer practice, on the way to school, around the dinner table. It's just a super way to grow closer.
Mm-hmm. And it starts so many conversations. Whatever book you're reading, just enables conversations that we need to be having with our children. Yeah. So it's one of the most important things we can do as parents is read with our kids.
Mm-hmm. Has this ever? I'm sure it has happened to you. Your kids are 13 or 14, and they say, "Yeah, Mom, you never knew, but back when we were 8, we did this." And you're saying,
"Oh yes,
what you did?"
Oh yes, way too many times, and I'm sure that there's much more still to be revealed.
Yes, and that's the beauty of reading with your kids, because you find out all that stuff you didn't that they snuck by you when they were younger.
Right. Some incident happens in the book, and they will finally fess up about this thing that they did.
Well, we can't let you sneak away until you tell us where we can learn more about Mac's Mission Diary, Operation Save the Summer, and find out more about you.
Absolutely. Well, my website is stephanieengelman.com. Kind of a difficult spelling, but Engelman is Engelman. And it's Mac's Mission Diary is on Amazon. I'm also on Substack, so you can find me there. And that's really the place that I'm writing and updating most frequently is on Substack.
We've had
under Stephanie Engelman.
We've had a great time speaking to the author of Mac's Mission Diary, Operation Save the Summer. Great new middle grade novel from our guest, S.J. Engelman. Hey, S.J., thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you, Jed. Take care.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of Reading with Your Kids and will join us for the next exciting episode of the show. In the meantime, we'd love for you to connect with us on social media, facebook.com/readingwithyourkids, @readingwithyourkids on Instagram, @JedleyMagic on X. We have a great YouTube channel, youtube.com/readingwithyourkids. And of course, our website, we think it's pretty great too, readingwithyourkids.com. If you want to read our full review of The Haunting, please go to readingwithyourkids.com and click on Parents Click Here. You can find that full review on our blog. And if you are an author, please be sure to click the Authors Click Here button at the top of readingwithyourkids.com to find out how you can be a guest here on the show. Being a guest, it's fun, it's easy, and it gives you the chance to tell thousands of people about your fantastic children's book. I want to thank the folks who made today's show so wonderful, starting with our guest, Helena Ku Rhee. Please be sure to check out Shoes Off, Please. Also want to thank S.J. Engelman. Please be sure to check out Mac's Mission Diary, Operation Save the Summer. I want to thank my team, Fatima Khan, Chris Doherty, Rory Grady, Stella Charay, Dante Greco. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support she gives me. Most of all, we all want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. And as always, thank you so very much for taking the time to make the world a better place. And you do that every time you read with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next episode of Reading with Your Kids.